For a king, celebrate. Yes, for a king, we celebrate. I want to wish everyone a happy Dr. Martin Luther King birthday weekend. To one of our country's greatest citizens, we celebrate a king, a real hero, unlike many of the frauds that we have on the scene today, a real leader. And I just wanted to give some quick facts. I used to love sharing this information with my students. Some little unknown facts about Dr. King. This will be real quick and short. Number one, he started college at age 15. College student on campus, age 15. What is really astonishing, and very few people know, his famous I Have a Dream speech at the March on Washington. He didn't plan on giving that speech. He had actually given that speech in Detroit much earlier at a march that was put together by someone I worked with, Tony Brown of Tony Brown's Journal television show. But as Dr. King was giving the speech at the March on Washington, and he was starting to wrap up, Mahalia Jackson, who was behind him, the great gospel singer of her day, said and yelled out to Martin, "Tell him about the dream. Tell him about the dream, Martin." She kept saying it. And though it wasn't part of his prepared remarks, he went into that great speech about the dream with a cadence that is probably one of the greatest speeches ever given in recorded history that we have. Something that really wasn't supposed to be given that day. So that's another little known fact. Another thing is people don't know that Dr. King's actual birth name is Michael. Fourth fact is that his SCLC organization, Southern Christian Leadership Conference, really struggled during the civil rights movement to have the resources, the money to keep going. It wasn't like today you can go online on the internet and raise money. They had to do things the old-fashioned way, send out letters, and it was very expensive to keep the civil rights movement going. And though some people, there were a few wealthy people that helped out, having a staff to pay every week and all the other expenses that they had, travel was very difficult. And on numerous occasions, they couldn't make payroll. They couldn't pay the people who were risking their lives, like Andrew Young, Dr. Abernathy, who succeeded Dr. King once Dr. King was killed, Ralph Abernathy, Hosea Williams, who I knew as well. All these people, it was a big payroll. And one of the weeks where the SCLC couldn't make the payroll, Dr. King actually sent Andrew Young to meet with Berry Gordy of Motown Records in Detroit so that they could get some money to pay all the staff and keep the SCLC going and the civil rights movement going, because it was very expensive. So that's something that happened on one occasion, and Berry Gordy at the time, Motown Records, was the largest black business in America. Another time, once again, they had difficulties. They used to have a lot of money on the side to bail people out when they got arrested, not only Dr. King and the leadership, but many of the people that were going to those marches. And Dr. King had to reach out to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam. So again, he sends Andy Young, this time to Chicago, to meet with the Nation of Islam. Andrew Young meets with Elijah Muhammad, and he says, "Okay, let me think about this, come back tomorrow." And when he comes back the next day, Elijah Muhammad had a group of his ministers there, along with his wife and some of the women leadership of the Nation of Islam. And he told Andy, "You see, we don't just have men here making decisions, we let the women be involved." And he let Andrew, again, Andy Young, on behalf of Dr. King, though the SCLC was going in a different direction, they believed in nonviolence as opposed to the Nation of Islam for our problems in America at the time in the 1960s, he said to his ministers and the people there, let Andrew Young make his pitch on behalf of the Minister Martin Luther King. And he did. And then they took a vote and they said, "Okay, we'll help you out." And they gave $5,000, which at that time is probably like maybe almost $100,000 in today's money to keep the SCLC afloat, and so they could make payroll. And then just two other quick stories about unknown about the finances and the monies that they needed to keep going. One was that the David Rockefeller and his brother Nelson Rockefeller, who later became governor of New York, when they saw the children being arrested and put in jail in Selma, and they were going to keep these children and young people there, they called Dr. King and said they wanted to help out financially. Dr. King sent his attorney up to New York, and the attorney met with the Rockefeller, two of the brothers. They walked into a bank vault on a weekend, and he just started pulling out, stacks of money, putting it in the bag, and said, whatever you need, we're going to give it to you. And when he asked for a receipt, he said, well, let me sign something. They said, oh, don't worry about it. We know where to find you in case. And they didn't ask for any paperwork. And he went back to Dr. King, perhaps with hundreds of thousands of dollars, so they could bail all of those people out. Also, on the fundraising note, my father was someone who helped raise money for the SCLC, and this was even before the March on Washington, but at the time when Dr. King was being called the communist. He wasn't as popular as he was after the March on Washington, and my father did a fundraising dinner at the Staten Hilton Hotel in New York City, across from Madison Square Garden, for Dr. King and the SCLC. The picture there is for you to see. Another known fact about the SCLC and Dr. King, this is the last one, and has to do with the holiday. Many young people don't know, well, there's a holiday, Martin Luther King holiday that we all celebrate, and it's another day off from work for most people. It's a federal holiday, state holiday, etc. But it didn't come easy. Since his assassination, Congressman Conyers, who's now deceased, from Detroit, he put a bill forward to honor Dr. King with this holiday. And of course, no one paid attention to it in 1968. And it took years and years and years. It was a major struggle to try to work to get a King holiday. But Stevie Wonder recorded a record that many people sing at birthday parties. Happy birthday to you. That was on his album, but it was about Dr. King. And then Stevie Wonder started doing a rally every year on Dr. King's birthday in the freezing cold in Washington. And more people started to come. So after a 2-year period, Stevie Wonder was eventually able to get a lot of recognition. And then in 1983, it finally became a holiday that went into effect. Ronald Reagan signed the bill for it. And prior to that, Stevie Wonder had done also a major concert tour with Bob Marley, who was a big reggae singer, very, very popular, and also Gil Scott-Heron. So those two people, along with Stevie Wonder, and then, as I said, Stevie would go every year in the cold and have a rally, were the ones that created the push and the movement for a King holiday that we celebrate nowadays. And as I used to tell my students, we really need to thank Dr. King, because many of the things we do today that we take for granted, whether it's going and staying at a hotel, eating if you're traveling, you can stay wherever you want when you get off of the highway. You can go have a meal wherever you want. You have a right to get an education in whatever school or college or university that you want to go to. And if you feel that there is discrimination, the federal government, of course, has institutions in place that you can use, the Equal Rights Department, etc., that EEOC, etc., that are there to try to remedy those situations for discrimination, unlike the time period when Dr. King was working on all of his visions for a better America, which of course was his dream. So we celebrate for King. Bless you, Dr. King, for all of the accomplishments that you did to make this country a better place. Don't forget to subscribe. Happy Dr. Martin Luther King holiday to you.